Our organization hosting these meetings are very important to keep us informed of the candidates that are in front of you, as well as to hear a little bit deeper about the challenges that will be facing Marion County and how we will seek to solve them. The second part of our meeting will be a great roundtable discussion on the priorities affecting businesses today. We have a long session that we're heading into, and we have a lot of our legislative advocates here. We want to hear from you today, and we're going to talk about the priorities, the things that are hitting your business, so we are aware as we head in to speak on your behalf. And of course, what will come with that is on occasion, we will ask you to step forward and either provide testimony in person or written. And that's a great way to voice and represent your fellow members within this organization. Today, our format for our candidates are going to be a little bit of back and forth, and that is by design. Both of our candidates are aware of the format. Zachary Zalicki is helping me with timing. Candidates, it is very important to remember when Zachary puts up the pink stop, we're going to ask that you do so. As facilitator of this discussion, as I often say, it's not fun to interrupt you, and it's no sign of disrespect, but we are going to be fair to each other's time, and so I may interject if I need to.
If I don't look at Zach, does that have any bearing?
What's that?
If I don't actually look at Zach, does it matter?
Zachary's pretty convincing, Sheriff. With that, we're going to start with 2-minute intro statements by each of our candidates. And with that, we are going to start that time with Sheriff Hunter.
Thank you, Tom. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, those that are online. We are here to discuss the position of sheriff. The position of sheriff in the community, extremely important when we talk about public safety. Public safety is not something that we look at and we say that it is data-driven. There is a data-driven part to public safety, but what public safety really comes down to is, do you all feel safe? Do you feel safe when you walk in your streets? You will feel safe when you walk in your neighborhoods. What does that mean? And that is the job of the position of sheriff, is to look at that public safety, but it's really a more complex than to simply say public safety. There's many aspects to this position when we talk about that. That's how we interact with our own folks at our agency and how we provide that service. It's how do we interact with the community and how do we give the community the voice so that the community has the chance and meet them in a space where they actually are. Because many times we try to have meetings and we try to hold them internally or locally, meaning that at a sheriff's office location, and that's not where the public actually has that voice. It's going further than that, looking at our advocacy groups, looking at our legislatures, working with our board of commissioners. All of those become extremely important, the city councils, into what that safety looks like for each individual community. Because one of the things that I have found, especially in the last year, is that all of our communities are all unique. They have unique needs. When we look at the overall picture really looks like forecasting 3 things for us. One is 3 priorities. Theft is one, community violence is one. There's my first sign. And the other is the addiction crisis. And the nexus that all of those have together, meaning that the addiction crisis has a nexus right into theft and how theft is affecting our community, affecting our businesses, affecting people being able to walk around freely, feel safe, and enjoy the businesses that are in this community. So through leadership, and I know we'll get to more since 2 minutes is a short time. That's why I'm here, and I get the stop. So that is my opening statement.
Now we'll go to candidate Rejaian.
Hi, I'm Stacy Rejaian. Some of you I know, some of you I don't know. I grew up in Salem. I went to Sprague High School. I went to college in North Carolina. When I majored in political science and later got an MBA from George Fox University. When I moved back to Oregon, I worked in the legislature for 2 legislative sessions for a state representative. And it was during that time that I first learned what a reserve deputy was and how I got involved in law enforcement. It was not on my radar at all and not something I was planning on doing. So back in 2005, I became a reserve deputy for the sheriff's office, and in 2007 was hired full-time. So I've spent my whole 19-year law enforcement career with the sheriff's office. In addition to my law enforcement career, I'm also a small business owner and a proud Salem Chamber member. I've been a realtor for 12 years also and own Olympic Realty for the last 8 years. So the reason that I'm running for sheriff is that we have some serious public safety issues that our community is facing. One of them, I would say the most critical, is the staffing of deputies at the sheriff's office. Our staffing levels are critically low, and that's because we continue to have deputies that leave the sheriff's office. And without the law enforcement professionals, we can't do any of the other work that needs to be done in this community. We also have serious problems with gang violence, drug trafficking, and just other crime that's on the rise in our community. And we need a sheriff who's going to be proactive to reduce crime in Marion County. Right now, the sheriff's office doesn't have any specialty teams that are dedicated to crime prevention. We're very reactive. You know, we'll investigate something after it happens, but I believe that we need to be proactive to prevent crime in Marion County, and I'm the county that will do that.
Appreciate your opening statements. Now we go through 4 questions from our membership and from our organization. To confirm, did either of you receive any of these 4 questions before this morning's meeting?
No, sir.
Fantastic. We enjoy that. We will start with candidate Rejaian. The first question we'd like you to address is, what do you see as the top 3 challenges Marion County, by the way, this is a 2-minute answer, not 1 minute. Zachary, for you on that. What do you see as the top 3 challenges Marion County is facing today, and how will you go about addressing these challenges?
You mean public safety challenges or just the county as a whole?
We purposely left that open.
Left it. Okay, so Marion County as a whole, I believe that just crime in general and the drug addiction crisis is a big concern. You know, we have House Bill 4002 that just took effect, the recriminalization of drugs here on September 1st. But and that, a lot of important things are happening with that. But if we don't stop the flow of drugs coming into the community, we can put all this time and effort and money into treating addiction. But if more people continue getting addicted to drugs, then it's just, we're going to be spinning our wheels. So we need to be proactive about addressing those who sell drugs in Marion County. Another issue is gang violence. For all the stories that you see in the news about shootings that happen, there's that many more that don't even make it to the news. Shots fired into residents. Like, I've responded to many calls where there have been shots fired into houses that have missed people sleeping in their bed by inches that could have ended in tragedy. And we are not doing enough, I believe, to address that issue. The third is just the rise of crime in general. It affects all of our businesses. It affects people wanting to start a business in this community, have a business in this community, recruiting employees. Do people want to live in Marion County? So I believe that we need to be more proactive about preventing crime in Marion County and having the specialty teams to address that, and not just being reactive to that. And then also, like I spoke about, our retention of deputies and our staffing is really important, because right now a lot of these teams that we need to have to address these issues, we don't have the staffing to be able to staff these teams and have them. So the sheriff's ability to recruit and retain a qualified workforce is a critical public safety issue. And I think an issue that a lot of people might not realize how bad it is, because the deputies have continued to do more with less so much over the last few years that they, you know, they'll run a shift with fewer people, but they still get the work done and we get the calls done. But it's getting to a breaking point. Sorry, I was not looking at.
I will read the question, Sheriff Hunter. What do you see the top 3 challenges Marion County is facing today, and how will you go about addressing these challenges?
Awesome. Thank you, sir. I alluded to it in my opening statement. So the top 3 challenges I see as the top 3 priorities, one is theft, 2 is community violence, and the third is the addiction crisis. And really, when we look at those top 3 challenges, we looked at the nexus of how those all tie together. On the addiction crisis, which really becomes kind of the foundation of a lot of what we're seeing when it comes to crime and other things going on. One of the ways we are addressing that is 4002. 4002 is not something we just simply say 4002 and move on from. There was a significant legislative move that ended up being one of the best bipartisan pieces of legislation that came out in 4002. A large part of that is the work that was done by the sheriff's office, myself testifying in front of the legislature, the work that our commissioners did to get us to recriminalization. But recriminalization is simply giving us accountability and a tool back, because to truly address that issue, we have to address the root cause of that issue, which is the addiction crisis. And unless we can find a way to provide treatment all we're doing is recycling those folks back out into the community, which means we're going to continue to see those issues. Community violence is another one that's very specific. This is why we commissioned a study on our gun violence problem analysis, looking at the data-driven, finding the hotspots. What is the community violence? There is a gang nexus to that community violence. However, that is not solely what we have. And we're looking at a lot of random acts of violence these days. And so we've got to find a way to engage the community mentorship to actually create behavioral change. That's what I've been working on with the city of Salem. That's what we'll continue to work on as we move forward. The third side of that is theft. Theft affects all of our businesses. It affects our daily lives. It affects our bottom dollar. And so theft, again, we are focusing on looking at the root cause of that issue. And our investigations right now are focused on where and why is that theft occurring, meaning that we need to get to the root cause, the fences of where people are taking those items and selling those items, not simply the theft itself.
Next question, and these are 1-minute answers, and we'll start with Sheriff Hunter this time. Our Marion County Sheriff must have a firm connection with individuals in both urban and rural communities within Marion County. How have you connected with residents in both larger cities and our rural county that you would be serving?
The connection is, again, I alluded to my opening statement. It's giving people a space and a voice and meeting them where they are to hear that voice. Since I took this position a year ago, I've made it a focus. I've hardly gone home in the last year. And part of that was my predecessors, and not saying anything to how they chose to do their job. We lost some of that connection with the community. And so what I have made it a focus to do is to get out into those communities, to be invited into those communities, into those spaces, whether it be town halls, whether it be community meetings, and represent listening, not represent talking. Listening first and hearing to be able to find out what is the unique needs of those communities. And I believe that is the role of the sheriff. It is not to manage. It is to absolutely get in the communities, listen, and find higher ways to be able to create change.
Thank you. Candidate Rejaian, I will repeat the question. Our Marion County Sheriff must have a firm connection with individuals in both urban and rural communities. How have you connected with residents in both larger cities and the rural county that you would be serving?
I'm currently a patrol deputy. I do that every day in my job. I go all over the county and to respond to calls for service all over Marion County, in the more urban areas, in the county areas outside around Lancaster, the rural towns in every corner of the county. And I'm responding to these calls and hearing the frustrations from people in our community when they're frustrated that why can't somebody be charged? Why are they not going to jail? Why are they out of jail already when they've done this, you know, X amount of times before? So I'm connecting with this community every day in my role at the sheriff's office, then also as a business owner in my real estate business. I'm working throughout the county. I'm also involved in a lot of other organizations in Marion County. I serve on the board of directors for the Mid-Valley Association of Realtors Community Foundation, where we do work throughout the county. And I volunteer for a lot of other organizations. And so I'm connected to the community that way.
Excellent. We will now start with candidate Rejaian. Our quality of life is diminishing due to thefts and local violence. At what level will you open your jail for the arresting and prosecuting of criminals versus cite and release?
I believe so. A lot of this, it comes down to Senate Bill 48, which is the bail reform, and which has affected our ability to lodge people in jail. I think that needs to be repealed. It has affected public safety. I personally do not like when I have to arrest somebody and it's a citation, or if we take them to jail, they're going to be immediately released. That needs to be repealed. So we can hold people in jail until judges have a chance to evaluate their record and make that determination if they're going to be a candidate that's suitable to be released on their recognizance, with the trust that they're going to come back and appear for their court date. Because there's many people, it's just this never-ending cycle of you arrest them, they have a warrant, they go to jail, whether they get a citation with a court date or a court date from the jail, then they don't appear for their court date. I personally was the victim of a theft last year, and it still hasn't gone to court because the suspect I'll get the notice from the DA's office that he's been arrested on his warrant, but then he doesn't show up to his court date. So we need to repeal Senate Bill 48 so we can have that accountability.
Thank you, Stacy. Our quality of life is diminishing due to thefts and local violence. At what level will you open your jail for arresting and prosecuting criminals versus cite and release? Sheriff Hunter.
This is not a 1-minute answer, but we're going to make it work. So the Senate Bill 48 part is important, and absolutely Senate Bill 48, there's already legislative action that we're starting to work on to look at what that looks like. So we can talk about it, or we can actually go do it. There are things that can be done in the meantime, though. When we look at our jail population of pretrial detainees has actually become considerably more violent. One of the things that concerns me right now is that we're letting those folks, because we have to take one in, and when one comes in, the least worst one comes out. And so what I have done is actually moved personnel back into the jail, which allowed the additional 55 jail beds to now be increased and opened. It's actually increased our jail population. And what that means is we are holding more violent offenders accountable, keeping them in the judicial system. I've also been working with the police agencies to open up what we can book and release. So to avoid the cite and release, actually holding people accountable, taking them to jail.
By the way, the only job worse than mine up here is actually Zachary's and having to tell you to stop. So Zachary, again, thank you for assisting me. And know that we are going to have a little time for you to have a back and forth here. So I think you will hold on to your key points if you don't feel they're out yet. This will start with Sheriff Hunter. Our fourth and final question, then we'll go over to questions between each other. What is the most immediate challenge you will face on January 1st, 2025, as you step into your role as Marion County Sheriff? Do you have the proper support team around you, or are changes within the department necessary to optimize service to Marion County residents?
The most immediate challenge is really a continuation of the challenges we're all facing right now. There is no magical challenge that's going to show up on January 1st that is going to be a revelation. Oh my gosh, here it is. The support network really goes down to the legislators in this county. It also goes down to the relationship with the commissioners in this county. Over 75% of the general fund is going towards public safety. So it is building those relationships and continuing to leverage and work those relationships to address, again, and I highlighted already when we talk about theft, community violence, and the addiction crisis, no one can do this alone. So the challenge itself is bringing everybody together to work collaboratively to solve the problem. That is the biggest challenge that will continue to exist now and will continue to exist on January 1st. But this county is committed to doing so, and I've been building those relationships for the last year. So come January 1st, it's going to be taking and continuing to exercise those relationships to get things done.
Sheriff Hunter and candidate Rejaian, what is the most immediate challenge you will face on January 1st, 2025, as you step into your role as Marion County Sheriff? Do you have the proper support team around you, or are changes within the department necessary for optimal service to Marion County residents?
So I think the biggest challenges facing the sheriff's office is what I mentioned earlier. It's a challenge now, and it will be then, is just have our staffing to be able, the deputy staffing to be able to address all these issues that, we've mentioned and that we've talked about. Because again, without the law enforcement professionals, we can talk about what the issues are and what we need to do, but if we don't have the law enforcement professionals there to do the work, we're not going to be able to get the job done. So it's a critical public safety issue to be able to have the staffing, and to recruit and retain those employees is very important. So I guess by nature, if I become sheriff, there will be some pretty significant staffing changes that happen at the sheriff's office. But I believe what a good leader does, they don't necessarily have to know all the answers and know how to do everything, but they have to be able to assemble a team of experts to help them address those challenges. And so that's something that I would be able to do.
Excellent. This next portion oftentimes separates out candidates a little more than our set questions, because I wouldn't say we're surface by any means, but this really allows them to share some differences between each other. And so the format will be, one will ask a question of the other. They will have 1 minute to respond to that. And then the asker of the question will have a 1 minute retort. Then we will go in inverse order. So we will start with Sheriff Hunter. You may ask your first question to candidate Rejaian.
Thank you, Tom. And I'll actually go right where we just left off and ask Stacy, how do you intend to address the staffing challenge that you are saying is here? How would you do that any differently than what is being done now?
I believe right now a big focus has been placed on recruiting, but not enough focus has been placed on, once we get these employees hired, keeping those new employees and keeping the employees we already have. One thing that I would do is implement retention interviews. So not waiting to have an exit interview once someone has already decided to leave the sheriff's office, but talking to our employees now to gauge, how many people are thinking about leaving? If you are thinking about leaving, what is something about another agency that's attracting you to go there? What can we do to retain our employees? What are some ideas that we have? Like, these are the employees that we're trying to keep, so why not ask them what we can do to have them stay here? I think sometimes we overcomplicate things and have to, hire consultants and try and figure it out, but why not just talk to our own people and see their ideas? And I think we can have some really good ideas from our people that we could implement to help with our retention.
And a 1-minute retort to the sheriff who asked the question.
Thank you, sir. On the staffing side, it is a challenge. One thing that I did as soon as I came in, and this was working directly with the Board of Commissioners, is we did commission actually to have a group come in that is a recruiting firm. I believe that recruiting is based on analytics. Where is your message going? Who is receiving your message? And how do we then find what we have seen significantly is that we've seen a reduction in those that want to be part of law enforcement. We need to know why. I can't simply have a magic answer to something that I need data to support. So we're currently going through that, about ready to change with that. When it comes to the concept of those that are leaving, we've had very few actually leave this office. So the ones that are leaving, there are a few in the jail, and I actually support them. So the ones that are leaving from the jail are going on to do law enforcement careers on the enforcement side. This is something they've wanted to do. They've started out in the jail. I would like them to stay and work at the sheriff's office, but at times I do have competing interests, which we are looking into and studying when it comes to the cost of what that looks like and how do we address that as the county.
You Sheriff. Rejaian, you name it now, may ask Sheriff Hunter a question, and you will also have 1 minute to retort.
Well, keeping on that theme, deputy staffing at the sheriff's office was low prior to your appointment, and more deputies have continued to leave the sheriff's office for other law enforcement agencies over the last year since you were appointed. Please list the specific things you have done since you were appointed to improve deputy retention specifically.
Sure. So I think I addressed the first part a minute ago when we talked about the fact that we've had one that has specifically left the enforcement division. We've had a few that have left from the jail to go to other agencies. When it comes to deputy retention, one of the first things I did was look internal at our agency. Communication and how we work together, feeling like you're part of a team. It's a paramilitary paramilitary command structure, but it is truly a team. And if you want folks to stay, they come to this job because of those that they work with. This job is not something that you enjoy every day. It's a difficult job. But when you're supported by the folks around you, that's in fact why you want to come to work, why you continue to serve your community. Building that pride in your community has been something that has been a focus for me. I have a very open door policy as a sheriff. I'm one of the only sheriffs that you can come down to my office at any point and have a conversation with me. So these concepts of retention interviews are happening because folks are coming and approaching and having conversations with me about what is happening.
We will now go to candidate Rejaian for a retort.
Okay, so I guess my response would be, if the retention interviews are happening, what has been the feedback of people are saying when they choose to leave? Like, what has been implemented to help keep people here? Because it's, first of all, more than just a few that have left. And then people who are leaving from working in the jail and institutions to do the patrol police side of things, we have that. And if the jail and patrol at the sheriff's office is part of the same union, they can keep their seniority if they come over to patrol. And there's a streamlined process that's easier to get hired for patrol. So to me, it's a red flag that people would choose to leave the agency altogether where they already have seniority and they, already could go through the hiring process easier to go somewhere else. And I don't think enough is being done to address that and really taking the issue for as serious it is, because there's more than a few people have left the jail. Part of the reason the transition center, which houses people in custody, was closed was due to staffing. So I think that is a serious issue.
Now we'll go in inverse order, and candidate Rejaian will have her second question for Sheriff Hunter.
So when someone runs for a public office and does not intend to complete the term they were elected to, it is misleading to the voters, dishonest, and unethical. This has been the practice for the last 26 years regarding the position of sheriff in Marion County. For the last 26 years, the elected sheriff has resigned before the end of their term, and the Marion County commissioners then appoint a replacement sheriff to serve the remainder of the resigning sheriff's term. Then when the election time came around, the appointed sheriff has run unopposed every time until now. This practice undermines the voters, and the Constitution is not the way our system of government was meant to function. Elections are how people hold the government and their elected officials accountable. A retiring sheriff's attempt to control who their successor will be and give that person an advantage in the next election by resigning before the end of their term, and then a small handful of people selecting the replacement, takes that choice away from the people, and it is wrong. I have pledged to the voters of Marion County that I will not engage in this practice and will complete any and all terms the voters choose to elect me to. My question for you is, will you give your word to the voters, and will you not resign or retire before the end of any term you are elected to?
Okay. I think that is a question that cannot be answered with a single answer. You do not know what is going to happen in the next 4 years of your life. You do not know if there's going to be a medical issue. I think we are assuming that there is a process where specifically people are leaving to allow another to come in. And that has not been the case in Marion County. That is not the case with my predecessor, Sheriff Cast. Sheriff Cast did not just choose to abandon his service. Sheriff Cast left for his own reasons that he had to do. So what I'm committed to is what is the best for Marion County. And even in this case where we do have an appointment that then takes place, there's a process to achieve that appointment. There was community input into the process to achieve that appointment. And that appointment still follows an election process that has to take place. Just because I was appointed did not mean I was appointed to the next 4 years of service. I've been in the community, engaging with the community to then solidify why I believe that I'm the best person for this position moving forward.
Sure. And candidate Rejaian, a retort.
I understand, I forgot to add that part on the end as far as like unforeseen medical things. Yes, things come up, emergencies come up where someone has to resign, but we can't say for the last 26 years that has been the case. Again, I think that it's wrong. It takes that choice away from the people, and trust in government is very important, especially trust in law enforcement, and that kind of, behind the scenes passing of the torch, choosing the next person, that erodes the public trust in government and law enforcement. It doesn't build it. And I think that we need to step away from that. And I'm, I guess, disappointed that you can't make that commitment to the voters that you won't engage in that practice.
Sheriff Hunter, your second question, candidate Rejaian.
Candidate Rejaian has talked about leadership a lot. So what my question would be for her is, leadership is something that is earned, is not just awarded. And so what is it that you have done during your 20 years at the sheriff's office to explore leadership positions, participate in leadership, or demonstrate your leadership to the office?
So I've participated in a lot of different roles in the sheriff's office. I've been an advisor for the cadet unit, which is one of the people that runs that unit. The cadets are kids that are between 14 and 21 years old. So that's, running everything from the academy, mentoring them, just everything to do with that program. I was also a member of our tactical negotiations team. And at one point I was the acting supervisor for that team when our supervisor was no longer with the team. I've been a field training officer, so training our new deputies. I have also been, I've applied for promotions, but I don't have any control over that process, like who gets selected for a sergeant. I think we all know, we've all been in the workplace. Sometimes a lot more goes into who gets selected for something that's necessarily the person who's done the most or is necessarily the best for the job. I've also continue in my role now just to mentor new deputies and be a resource for our new deputies in the sheriff's office.
Sheriff Hunter, retort.
I believe leadership involves several things, but if we look at a couple of specifics, there's the sort of managerial side to leadership, understanding concepts of budget, personnel, how those things work. And then there's this other side to leadership where, especially in this job, dealing with what we deal with in the community, are you willing to follow that person? And I believe that's an earned position. So throughout my career, I have not only had some of the FTO and other pieces like that, I've also been an instructor. I'm an instructor nationally. I believe that teaching is one of the most important components to leadership as far as successioning and bringing people to be better than they were. I was the last one out of the fires on September, now we're almost right there, September 7th going into September 8th of 2020, and led that team out of the canyon that night. I've had chances to work directly with sheriffs and undersheriffs in previous administrations. I've worked as a lieutenant and a sergeant. I've worked in multiple different divisions in the office. I believe these are what build true leadership and true leadership to take us to the next generation.
Thank you. Great job, both candidates. Now is we have some time dedicated to questions from the audience. Dan, if we do have questions from anybody online, if you will let me know as well. Who would like to start us out with the first question? Director Pastor Roy.
Good question. Who are your most noteworthy endorsements?
By the way, my fault, 1 minute answers. If you would, please ask if you have a question specific to one or the other, please notify the audience. This is for both 1 minute answers. I believe it is on Sheriff Hunter to answer that question first.
Sure. Endorsements that I've gone out and I've been able to earn, Senator Thatcher, Senator Girard, Senator Patterson. I've also have endorsements from Representative Deal, Representative Kramer, Representative Mannix. And I know there's one more in there. The the Kaiser Chamber of Commerce, Marion Polk First. I have endorsements from all three of the Board of Commissioners, Danielle Bethel, Colm Willis, and Kevin Cameron. I have an endorsement from DA Paige Clarkson. I have some big community leaders, an endorsement from Dick Whitnell, as far as in the community goes. I have two, and I'm going to get them wrong as we talk them, but from our Hispanic groups that I've been able to work with, Union Hispana and the Hispanic Business Alliance. I have endorsements from both of those groups. And I look at every single one of those endorsements as very noteworthy of each individual group that it represents.
The same question on endorsements to candidate Rejaian.
So I've been endorsed by the Marion County Republican Party. And, you know, while endorsements are important, at the end of the day, representatives and different people are just people like everybody else. And I think the most important endorsement that a candidate can get is from the voters, because those are the people that the candidate is going to be working for. And all of those people, they get one vote at the end of the day. And so I believe that spending my time reaching out to the voters and connecting with them and getting to know them and earning their vote is time well spent.
Thank you both. Next question from the audience. Past President Miller.
I made a comment about the failing form legislation and the need to repeal that. Could you comment on the chances of that happening and what direction would you take that do not happen?
Is that for me specifically, or I mean, I talked about it. Yeah. So, I mean, obviously we know that our legislature is kind of dominated by one party that is the one that pushed Senate Bill 48 through in the first place. So one thing that I think that the sheriff should be is a leader for public safety. And if the legislature fails to make the changes that we need, if they fail to fix that and repeal Senate Bill 48, that we have the citizens initiative process in Oregon. And I know Kevin Mannix had started that, but it got tied up in the challenging the ballot title in the courts. So I think that we need to utilize that, and the sheriff can use their position as sheriff to educate the public. And because I think the public is fed up with it and they're tired of seeing people not being held accountable and being released out of jail when they should be held in jail. So if the legislature won't do the job and won't address the priorities of the people, then we have a process in Oregon to do that. And I would take a leadership role in helping educate the public and get that on the ballot and passed.
Thank you. Sheriff Hunter, same question.
Thank you. Senate Bill 48 So when you look at what happened with Senate Bill 48, it was a bureaucrat decision. And it was a bureaucratic decision by those that don't work in the jail, don't understand what those crimes actually look like, and failed to understand the impact of those crimes on the community. Senate Bill 48 itself is built into three categories: Category 1, Category 2, and Category 3. Category 3 are our lodgeable charges. Category 2 and Category 1 do not allow us to lodge. So I think when we look at how we are going about that, and we've already started to do so, it's looking at a reorganization of those categories. All the crimes in Oregon are listed in those categories, but they're improperly and imbalanced in how those are listed. So if we just go about it and say, I want to repeal it, we're going to go nowhere. This is not a repeal. The concept was good, but we need to look at it similar to how we looked at 4002 and changing in the reform of 110, and get those categories figured out so that the folks that need to stay in jail do stay in jail, and the folks that we can work on treatment and being back in the community, that we can get them back to the community in a stabler place.
Thank you. We have time for two others. Yes, Jackie.
So I kept hearing a lot of talk about staffing. However, I'm sure the budget plays a big role into staffing, and so with that, is it unrealistic to say we need more staffing, when maybe you guys can't actually get staffing because of the budget issue? So I guess that there's two parts to that.
Yeah.
You mentioned part of being a leader is talking about management, budgeting, all that. I didn't hear that on the other side.
Yeah.
So I don't know how.
Yeah, so the staffing crisis that I'm talking about, it's not a matter of being fully staffed. We have vacant positions that aren't filled. So it's not saying we need to go to the commissioners and ask for more money. Yes, that down the road, but right now, this is filling vacant positions that we have that are created by people leaving the sheriff's office. So it's not a matter of needing additional funding and having to get those positions. It's filling the positions that we already have allotted to the sheriff's office and keeping those people there.
Sheriff Hunter.
Twofold. There's always a budget issue. There's always a finite amount of money that has to be considered in this. And that's that work with the Board of Commissioners, that what are the needs of the sheriff's office? There are existing positions that are open. I also commissioned a study through CNA that they're going to be giving us the results here towards the end of the year, which looked at the entire office and how are we doing business? Are we efficiently doing business the way we should be? Do we have the teams that we need? Do we have the support that we need? Are there teams that we have right now that we can put folks in other places because we don't need to do this? So when you look at addressing the staffing crisis, we actually have an increase of applications coming in now. I've got the recruitment team that is going to be giving us analytics into where do we need to reach out? How do we need to connect to fill those positions? And then it is having the conversations with the Board of Commissioners and having their support. But I believe you need data to drive those. I can't anecdotally tell the commissioners, hey, this is what I need, or this is how a change needs to occur. I need data to be able to drive that conversation.
Thank you. We have time for one more question from the audience. Director Vu.
Regarding the retention aspect, I feel there's a conflict of the numbers of individuals that have left the sheriff. So what is the number of sheriffs that have left relative to the natural turnover inside the rest of that?
Okay. I saw you starting to go.
What was it? Go ahead.
So if you break it down and you look at it, I can't give you an exact number. What I can tell you is that on the enforcement division, there's two folks that I'm aware of, and I believe actually one of them left before I took this office, but one went to be a sergeant in the city of Staten, and one went back to be an officer in the city of Woodburn because that's where he grew up and that's where he wanted to go. Neither one of them left the office because they weren't happy with the office. The ones that have left in the jail, we've had some attrition from retirements and things like that. But the ones that are leaving the jail are going to work at other agencies because they want to work in enforcement. And yes, I would like to continue to work on, and we are, as to why they're leaving and not wanting to come work here in Marion County and just remain with us. And a lot of that does come down to a fiscal piece, that they can get more to work at these other agencies, which is the issue that we continue to address with the commissioners. We continue to address that through bargaining, and we'll continue. But we have to understand there's a difference between our comparables and our competitors. And that is really the issue when we start talking about budget and working to fund those positions.
So
Yeah, please.
I also don't have the exact numbers, but what I can tell you is that, you know, patrol teams will regularly have 4 and 5 deputies to patrol the entire 1,200 square miles of Marion County. There's a lot of calls that we go to by ourselves, that if it was an officer in the city of Salem, you'd take 2 or 3 people to that because they have the people, but we are stretched very thin with our numbers. The jail is continually short-staffed. Part of the reason that was cited for the transition center closing was attrition was outpacing the hiring and training of new deputies. So I don't know the exact numbers, but I can tell you that it's being felt a lot. It's wearing on the deputies, and it's affecting our ability to provide the services that we need to the community.
I love technology, and we have a viewer who has sent in a question that I think is worthy of being asked of each of you, and then we will go into concluding comments. Please describe how you feel the functionality of the relationship between Marion County Sheriff's Department and the City of Salem's Police Department. And Rejaian, we're going to start with you.
So the functionality, I mean, myself as a patrol deputy, we work with Salem Police a lot because there's a lot of areas, you know, especially around Lancaster, one side of the street you're in the city, one side of the street you're in the county. And so kind of our work overlaps each other. I think a lot of the officers and the deputies work well together. At the higher levels, I know that there's been some not as productive relationships, but if I became sheriff, I would, you know, and again, this is things that I've heard. I'm not an upper rank person, but if I became sheriff's office, the sheriff, it would be a priority to repair relationships so we can have a good relationship and a productive relationship with Salem and all of the other agencies within Marion County.
Thank you. Sheriff Hunter.
Vastly important is what that looks like between the sheriff's office and the city of Salem. Consumers, constituents, they don't necessarily care what color the uniform is. They just want somebody to show up. And what that means, as Stacy has mentioned, especially on Lancaster, there's a lot of cross. I disagree with the concept that there's disagreements going on at higher levels. We have spent the last year, and prior to me, but especially the last year, rebuilding those. I have an excellent relationship with Chief Womack. We have an excellent relationship between the DCs and our command staff. We are routinely meeting to figure out not only how do we solve problems as a community, but how do we continue to set the example as a leadership team for all the way down through our line staff to continue to build this relationship, build the trust, build the camaraderie, and build the pride in law enforcement. This extends also to the city of Kaiser with the new chief, Andrew Copeland. And that's been a relationship, again, we have continued to foster and grow because it's important to the community.
Thank you both for answering that. And from the perspective of Polk County Commissioner Morthors, could you also share just very quickly your thoughts on the productivity and the conductivity in your relationship with Polk County as well? And we'll start with Sheriff Hunter.
Yeah, again, and this is one where I just talked about a little bit where people don't care what the uniform looks like. And what I mean by that is we've had a fantastic relationship with Polk County, and part of that is our lead program, our law enforcement assisted diversion right now. We are actually taking that program and working in Wallace Marine Park. We know that is a significant area of concern for Polk County. We know that is a consistent area of concern for the city of Salem. And so for us as the sheriff's office, it's not, hey, that's not our jurisdiction, there's nothing we can do. It's how can we help in this situation? And so we've been able to move those resources over into Wallace Marine Park, dealing with that, knowing that folks are crossing both sides of the river. And so I believe that relationship, whether it's our Marine program working together, there's several places to include just the sheriffs and the sheriffs working together in general for the betterment of this state. There's always going to be that relationship, and it has to be something intentional that you foster.
Thank you. And the same question regarding relationship with Polk County for candidate Rejaian.
Yeah, so in my day-to-day, as a patrol deputy, I don't interact with Polk County as much as Salem, just they're a little more removed. We don't really go over the bridge and cover in the West Salem area. Occasionally, like on the backside of South Salem. We'll work with some of the agencies from Polk County. But again, it's the same thing that I mentioned before, is just having a good working relationship and building those relationships with the law enforcement leaders and personnel of all the agencies in our area.
Excellent. We will now go, and great job, staying right on time to both of you. Thank you very much. We will now go into 2-minute closing statements, and we will start with candidate Rejaian.
Thank you. So to change up a little bit from what I had originally talk about. First, I want to thank all of you here in person and online. This is important. This process, like having candidates and talking about ideas and issues, is important. It's good for our government. It's good to have elections and for people to participate. So thank you all for that. Sheriff Hunter mentioned my leadership experience and that role in the sheriff's office. And I've had experiences in the sheriff's office, but our paths might be a little bit different, whereas I don't have those higher ranks within the sheriff's office, but I do have leadership experience. I have experience as a business owner, which all of you being business owners in this room know. With that comes budgeting and all those other managerial tasks, training employees, supervising employees. I've been a business owner for 12, or not 12, I've been a realtor for 12 years, but a business owner for 8 years. And many businesses don't make it past their first few years, and I'm continuing on and successful. Also being involved in the community. I believe that community involvement and giving back and taking leadership roles in that is important. I serve on several boards. I'm on the board of directors for the Western States Hostage Negotiators Association. That's been since 2009 with a year break in there. I'm also, like I mentioned, on the board of the Mid-Valley Association of Realtors Community Foundation, Salem Academy Youth Football. I'm also on the board. We're starting a booster club at Salem Academy to get that off the ground. All of these things are taking our leadership roles and being involved in the community and connecting with the community. And so while our paths might be different, I don't think it's fair to say that I don't have leadership experience and leadership that I can bring to the role of the sheriff. Sheriff Hunter and I have both dedicated our lives to serving this community. Like, he's a good person. We worked together way back on patrol. But I think we have different ideas and different priorities of, what we think the important issues are and how to address that. And I think that there's I keep looking over there and I don't see my thing. So yeah.
Thank you, candidate. And Sheriff Hunter, 2 minutes of closing statements.
Start out by saying the position of sheriff is extremely important. The position of public safety is important. And I think there are necessary aspects to that position. One of them is leadership. What that leadership looks like, I previously talked about it. It's one, being able to get things done, whether it be working with the Board of Commissioners, whether it be working with our legislatures, whether it be working in the community. How do we get those things done? Being able to accomplish that, a lot of that is built on relationships. And in my past year, if you look at my track record on what those relationships look like, I've made it intentional. I've made it a focus. I've made it a point to go out and build those relationships that previously didn't exist. The other side to leadership is also knowing, understanding the procedures, the policies. How does the office work? How does a $94 million budget work? How does it work between 4 different divisions? I've had contact and worked in all of those 4 divisions, to include the fact that I've spent a significant amount of time down in operations, working directly with the sheriffs, the undersheriffs, the command staff down there, working on the entirety of the agency. And what does that look like for the entirety of the agency? I believe leadership is a lot more, and especially when leadership, and you're talking about leadership in public safety, it is built and the foundation of it is within public safety. What have you done within your career to get you to this point? And then look at my past year of working in the legislature with 4002, building and being the example for the entire state on our law enforcement assisted diversion programs, teaching the entire state. There's another point to leadership, which is succession, and succession comes from teaching. I'm a national instructor. I'm a qualified expert in circuit court. These are the things I believe go together. The other side of it that I would ask everyone to look at is the community relationships. I can be part of a board, or I can be in the community, which we do a number of events all the time, representing the sheriff's office and getting to know the community on the public safety side. That's where you truly understand what the community needs are and how we address those.
Sure. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 2 great candidates in front of us. So let's acknowledge them for their time. Okay, we're going to do a little transition. It's wonderful to have Nicole in the room, our partners at PAC West in the room, to hear a little bit about the discussion. This is not solely a discussion on preparing for the long session of legislation. You gave me 30-second notice already, Zachary? I like it. But rather, this is to take a pulse of the room to allow the concerted efforts of Lena Prine, George Flavin, Nicole Palmetier Hazelbaker, and our co-chairs to be designing policy work and that is incredibly relevant to your businesses today. To suggest we don't have, hopefully, the pulse day in and day out of your business, that's not the case. We speak with each of you, we hear from each of you quite often, and that's important. But we're going to really drill down into some of the things that are affecting your business today that maybe you have not had a chance to express, and each of you will have very unique and different answers to that. So we're going to start in with the concept, and what I am going to hit a little bit of a fast forward. We had a little more time allocated than we have. I'm going to give you the standard spiel. We want everybody to be respected. We want everybody to be heard. There are no wrong answers here. There are different priorities for different businesses. You all understand that. You know how to play well in the sandbox. So starting on the topic of business challenges and opportunities, if we could, in pretty short order, what are the pressing challenges that you're facing, the most pressing challenges you're facing within your business or company today? And I'm just going to put them on a list. And if you find yourself with similar range, similar challenge to someone else, I'm just going to put a check mark for that sake. So who would like to start out with a soft, easy one? Jonathan.
Just in the past month, public safety has been huge. And then taxes, it's been a lot.
Jonathan, are you okay if I include taxation and regulation together?
Taxation and regulation.
Regulation.
Thank you.
John
Milton.
Topic is one four-letter word. And it's a word I shared with Tina Kotek probably about 10 years ago when she was apparently on the state rep. And the word is S-T-O-P. Stop making it harder.
I thought it was. The Smith. Yeah.
Being in an industry where I generally employ the lower, entry level. Minimum wage and the stupid amount they're supposed to pay for something they're expecting to live on it for life. Sorry. And in relation to that, the housing, because housing is so expensive and my people, just those two correlate and it's a big struggle.
From the audience, child care. On the construction world, Rich.
So in recruiting, I've had people that have come and interviewed at the schools and they don't approve of how the schools or what they're teaching at schools. Being exposed.
Ability to recruit good people in the industries.
Lily, how about your perspective on construction right now? What are you facing?
I was on that same taxation.
Taxation.
Yeah.
Okay. Nicole.
Speaking for Cascade Tire, the lack of economic development. In this community.
I shared with Nicole, I have a peer in Texas, and they started out their state legislative session with 134 pro-business bills. How many did Oregon start with?
I think it was a negative number.
Not as much, right? Okay, that is a very different mindset. And if you look at the states that are growing, you think they're starting with pro-business bills or anti-business bills? Economics is the base of all this, folks. Zachary.
This is kind of a reverse engineered approach to this, but just looking at what's going to be a priority. People will think about is the transportation bill, and if there is, you know, some, I think that can go towards economic development, right? But thinking about that from a business owner's perspective, personally, I think it'd be an important thing for folks to kind of think about how.
Double up on recruitment and retention of talent.
Another check mark by taxation, our plans are building.
And put another check mark next to regulation and taxation.
Good, several bonus rounds. Okay, do we feel we have a good comprehensive list? Anything that is standing out in your business, especially if your business is a little more unique, maybe you have an answer. Tammy, you're in such a great industry. You are similar to me, representing a great. What's the Accountants Association? What are you hearing on your end?
We continue to need more processing. You have a place for the live animals to be processed for them to end up in our grocery store in the form of steak or hamburger.
As much as we have unfortunately heard of all of our mills closing, we're hearing of now our processing.
Yes.
And they're actually on the target.
Yes, and we have competing agency rulemaking processes that then find themselves in conflict with each other, but agencies that aren't speaking to one another. They don't know that rules have been written that are affecting constituencies, and so they're responding after the fact. The constituencies are responding after the fact, but many times that goes on in a process that is supposed to be public and it's not. And the legislative body really needs to hold all of these agencies accountable.
There's one missing from the list that I thought would come up, but it hasn't. The impact of inflation.
I was just gonna say that.
And cost of goods.
So, inflation with our customer base is, I think it's taking all of the stop making it harder. And rolling up the taxation and the regulation, the customers, inflation and safety costs and just taxation on them is what we hear the most, is the driving force of what the customers concern.
I did a Main Street walk with a couple members. Jim Boo was one of them, Ryan Sure is another. And I will tell you, if you want to just do Main Street, this is very loud that I'm hearing. Zachary.
Could be another spot on that same line. I mean, from the energy perspective, in and of itself, the cost of energy, whether it's, you know, electricity or gas, there was a letter sent out by, to the PUC, Mayor Ted Wheeler speaking directly to the cost of electricity going up, and there's some preliminary discussions around some kind of regulatory bill directed to the PUC for energy costs or number.
Last one, Jackie.
Inflation, you can put a check mark. I guess my minimum wage part was more inflation. In the last, our starting wage gone up 80% for our staff that we hire, which like that's a lot because then all the other insurances follow the exact payroll numbers have all gone up. So for us, it starts in our labor heavy industry, it starts with that starting wage and what we've had to put in to get wage.
And now it's kind of TBI.
We're going to transfer into another great topic, workforce and talent development. How are you currently addressing your workforce hiring and retention challenges? How are you addressing them in your business? We want to crowdsource this a little to hear how different companies are taking on. Lillian.
So we had a really hard time getting good talent, and one of the things that we did is that we started having our employees bring through people that they wanted to work with. And what we found from that is that they would bring in people that they trusted and that they could hold accountable. And then our whole crew quality went way up. And so that's, you know, and it wasn't, I tried incentivizing and saying bring people in that way. It didn't work that way. But when it was, you're held accountable for the people you work with. If you don't think the people you work with are working well, get some other people in there. And that's how we managed to get our.
Well, I love that downtown for 15 years. Our best future employee came from our existing employees network. Jonathan.
I'm gonna share an interesting insight. So some of my clients who need skilled white collar professionals, sales associates or office type managers that can work virtually are getting it from Latin America. And I've had the honor to work with some of their staff, you could say. And what's really sad is that outside of the US, those professionals are just top tier professionals. You cannot find anyone from the Hispanic community who even goes to college that can even match their level of skill. And to me, it's really sad because what does that say about our public education system? And that's a very interesting way for some of my clients to deal with this, because instead of paying someone that would like $6,000 to $8,000 a month, now they're paying someone maybe $1,000 a month for way better talent. And that's kind of scary in my opinion.
Other ways, and Jonathan.
Well, we've implemented technology to eliminate minimum wage jobs. So my goal was to put myself in a position where I didn't care what minimum wage is, because everyone that worked for me was doing something that merited more like $20 an hour.
Right.
But, you know, we've eliminated 50 jobs, which is too bad. Because, you know, we've had those jobs for decades, and they're great entry-level jobs for high school kids and kids in college, and we just had to eliminate it.
Ross grocery store needs to take out every one of your baskets of groceries. And then minimum wage, and full disclosure, I got hired at 15 and started at Ross on the day of my 16th birthday. Those jobs are gone. There's no minimum wage, there's no training wage in the state, and that's very challenging. So great observation, John. Rich.
I've had to create more of a golden handcuff package in my benefits package to outpace other competitors so that people stay with me, or they come look at what I offer as benefit.
Great.
So I guess on that note, I'll share something that's been really unique that a lot of local companies are implementing to that point. Restrictive executive bonus arrangements. They are taking off like I've never seen them in my career.
What's that?
So it's basically, well, it's we could talk about
offline, yeah. I don't want my competitors knowing.
Right.
Information sharing is important. Why don't you tell us a little more about it, Jonathan?
Yeah, so essentially, this has been around for a long time. The IRS allows employers to put a bonus towards an employee that's fully tax deductible. That bonus, then it's put into a life insurance, cash value life insurance program. Think of like a life insurance retirement plan. And then it builds a lot of cash value, but the employee doesn't get it until they stay within a certain time frame with the employers. Say to age 65, you're going to get a huge lump sum of money. You're not going to get it from anything else. But if they leave, then the employer gets all the money back if you structure it correctly and abide by what the IRS allows you to do. So that itself has been around for a long time. But lately, a lot of people are doing this kind of stuff now.
That's the investing process already, isn't it?
There's more mechanics to that strategy, but this is specifically in section 62 of the IRS code under executive bonus agreements.
Just literally talking with our employees, like we have monthly meetings and we ask different questions, like what's more valuable to you, and having them like as a group so they have to say, we used to take the entire week of July off so they could have a week off without worrying about time requests and such. But they're like, well, we kind of need to work, so we can't afford a small business to pay for that entirely. So as a group, we're like, all right, we'll do 2 days off with the weekends, that's 5 days off. So allowing them to collaborate with us.
Oh,
Cascade Tire has had a big success, but it took some work in developing the partnerships with CTEC and Chemeketa. They had to fight bully to be able to allow kids from CTEC to work in the shop because there are some restrictions, but fortunately he knows a great lobbyist and we were able to overcome but we were able to overcome it and let those kids come in, and some of them have been there long enough and now they're moving on to college. They're moving on into more of a managerial space. It's been a great relationship.
and know that, and you guys have done a great job there. Know that, past President Rasmussen did yeoman's work in this category. He really forged forward to get those 16 and 17-year-olds qualified on equipment with BOLI, some BOLI movement, to allow that to happen. So thank you, Alan. I know you're probably not listening, but great work on that. Any other on innovation? Okay, let's switch to the last one. What specific policies or regulations are hindering you most? Specific policies or regulations are hindering you most? Okay, minimum wage we heard. Okay,
And along with that, I mean, I understand the need for this, but it just seems ridiculous to the extreme. The pay equity law really stops us from being able to legally. It's tricky to try and give a bonus because if you give a bonus, there has to be so many reasons why only this person gets it and not the others. And in my industry, it's really hard to do that with everyone. But the pay equity law is tricky for us to reward employees financially.
Rich. Where this is hitting, when we walk and go the streets, where this hits the most is a business 15 or less. Keep the position open, but have no productivity of, 8% of your existing workforce. Then you need to hire somebody to be in place, and oh, by the way, when the person comes back, they're no longer going to work for us. That can be absorbed in big companies much easier than in small companies, which make up the vast majority of our membership. Rich, and then Jonathan.
Yes, I did. I gave you that.
Oh, you did? Pardon me. Yes, Jonathan.
I don't know what it's called, but some of the housing. So I recently dealt with this. I had not experienced it. If you have a tenant and a tenant brings in a roommate and the roommate's not on lease, and the tenant leaves and that person's lived there for, I think, a week, you can no longer evict them. They are now there. So if though they never signed a lease, they never paid anything, and the other person left, they come in and now you're stuck with them.
Just happened to me, it took 4 months to get people out, and almost $6,000.
And then the interesting thing is that in today's world, we have a lot of people with addictions. Sometimes those people, they're doing chaos, you call the police, and the police can't do anything. So then that creates the ideal storm for conflict.
Just a question that I have no idea. I'm just curious, is there a way and maybe you can answer this, but is there a way in like you sign a lease or whatever that you can essentially state that you can't have anybody in there?
It is.
Yeah, my lease agreement is not allowed for splitting, but
Oh, okay.
you have to go for the whole system.
Hold on, we're getting you
That's considered subleasing.
Okay.
And so usually in a contract, they state that you are not allowed to sublease, but in that situation, so if that person was staying at that house for more than 3 months and rent was being paid, technically the landlord's accepting that rent and accepting that tenant. That's where they become a tenant.
It's like adverse possession in a way.
Yes. And not even knowing, but you're accepting rent. It is a hard time to get rid of it.
Okay,
I would put anything that has to do with plans and permitting. That has such an impact on housing and economic development.
I had a very productive meeting with our deputy city manager, Krishna Namburi. She is very much taking on this planning and permitting process. We actually invited them to share where they're at this morning, and they were unable due to finishing up some vacations in the summer and the like. But in very short order, we are bringing the city in front of this exact group to talk about their advancements in the permitting process. I can tell you this, if you hearken back to the time when Anna Peterson was mayor of the city, she required a giant board put up in planning that visually showed where every project was. And at the start of every city council meeting, they received an update. You want to put some pressure in a situation, visually look at it and get a report on council floor each time. I suspect Julie and Councillor Matthews and others will be looking for that type of response. And I think the city, I gave her a fair warning about that. I actually talked about that exact true concept, not a theory. But I shared my thoughts on that. And the city is aware that those kind of asks will be coming with this new council. So I think that's a productive first step. But boy, you get Erdman in here and others, it's been a grindhouse to get through permitting in the city. And we have builders who are no longer choosing to be here. Last question, we'll finish very quick. This is very important, Zachary. Thank you for your help today. Thank you. What are the particular areas that you feel the Salem Chamber is missing on and you could use some help? We feel we're very in touch, but maybe you're not seeing enough activity in some areas, or do you see some foresight, key areas that you would like us to jump in on that you see coming down the tracks? Jonathan?
Well, I think that, at least the way I see it is that many times it's like going to the doctor. When you go to the doctor, you can't tell the doctor, hey, I have something wrong right here. There's a cancer and you need to treat it with this and that. Give me that medication. That's where I feel like maybe the group can do some diagnosing of what are some of the things that could be done that we don't even know could be done, because I feel that's a real problem. Many business owners, including myself, to some degree, don't know what can be done or cannot be done. Does that make sense?
Okay.
It's hard to answer this. It's hard to answer this because I keep going to all the new things that Chamber or new to me that Chamber offers. So in my perspective, you guys are doing a great, well-rounded job hitting in all the different areas of life.
I think our board made a pretty incredible strategic step to contract a lobbyist to be involved and engage. And it made a further step to engage with another lobby firm on making sure we are very, very visible and present on what's going on with the city budgeting process. So I want to credit our two lobby firms in the audience today and thank them for their partnership. You've both been great to work with. So we feel the chamber is following and tracking the issues. Thank you for providing us some priorities. So you know how that process will go back. Vice President Duncan manages our business advocacy leadership team. We will take this information along with our partners in the lobby world and really try and set forward an agenda for how we walk into 2025 and tackle these problems. One of the key things that I'm going to continue to remind people at the forefront, we have a Shemakita bond in November, and you have staring you right in the face a city operating levy, potentially for public safety, potentially for livability, as well as a Salem Kaiser School District operating levy, which has never occurred in our city. They have never asked for an operating levy, only bonding. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we are at 8.
One last thing. Give an example to my point that we don't know sometimes what's out there. I've been hearing that Measure 117 could be very, very impactful to the state. I really had no clue about it. That's the ranked choice voting that likely could pass here in the States. And that right there will allow the more non-business friendly candidates party to leverage getting more people elected that will make all this even worse than what it is now. Does that make sense? So anyways, to my point that we don't know what's out there sometimes.
We will get education out about that. That's great feedback. And please, so you're on that leadership group, so bring that to us. With that, ladies and gentlemen, we are concluded. Thank you all. Those online, thank you for spending your morning with us. And to each of you, we look forward to seeing you in October. I would be remiss if I did not plug on Monday. We have to kick off our warm speaker series. And boy, is it a doozy right out of the gate. We have President of Western Oregon University, Dr. Peters. We have Dr. Jessica Howard from Chemeketa, and we have Superintendent Andrea Castaneda from Salem Kaiser School District, entitled "The Future of Public Education in Salem Kaiser." Hope to see you all on Monday. Thank you all.